Hola chicas, soy yo, la señora Gottesman, and for this lesson today, the big question is to be temporarily or permanently. And this lesson I'm going to give it to you in English just to make sure it's clear for everybody. And this is something that we've already done in class and we've already exercised, but it will serve as a review for those of you who would like it or need it. The goal of this lesson is to teach you the 6 uses of the verb to be in Spanish. Ser o estar. The first thing you need to know when using ser versus estar is you need to make sure you know your subject pronouns. And we've been working on these since last year, at least the singular ones. But let's go over them real quick. The way we say I in Spanish is yo. The way we say you familiar in Spanish is tú. Con acento. You need that accent there because otherwise, without this accent, you would be saying your. The way we say he in Spanish is él, again, con acento, because if you left that accent out, you would actually be saying the. The way we say she in Spanish is ella. The way we say you formal in Spanish is usted. And for the two uses, the two yous, this is familiar, so we would use these with each other. Maybe students would use them with each other, grown-ups with each other. But for you formal, generally children would tend to use these with grown-ups who they're not familiar with or with their teachers. And grown-ups would use them amongst themselves as well for someone they're just meeting for the first time, for example. And these are all our subject pronouns from last year. And then from this year we learned we masculine is nosotros, we feminine is nosotras, they masculine is ellos, they feminine is ellas, and you all is ustedes. Now you'll note that ellos, ellas, and ustedes is essentially the plural of él, ella, usted. And that's helpful to know when we're filling out the table, which we'll talk more about later. The second thing you need to know is how to say to be. In Spanish, there are 2 ways to say to be. There's permanent to be, which is ser. And there's temporary to be, which is estar. And an easy way to remember this is that the temporary form of to be has a T in it. Isn't that convenient? So we know whenever we see estar, that's temporary. There's the T right there to remind us. And obviously when we want to use to be, we can't walk around saying I to be Jackie or I to be a teacher. I actually have to know how to change these verbs depending on who we're talking about in the sentence. And so that's where our next slide leads us. The third thing you need to know is how to conjugate ser and estar. And again, when we talk about conjugating a verb, we're talking about changing it depending on who we're talking about in the sentence. So we all learned a nifty little song for remembering how to use ser and estar, and the song is modeled after this table, and I'm going to sing it right now. It's soy, eres, es, somos y son, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, ellos, ellas, ustedes, ellos, ellas, ustedes, estoy, estás, está, estamos, esta, ing es ando, o ing es yendo, ando o yendo. So when we talk about ando or yendo, we know that's the way we say ing in Spanish, and that's one of the uses of to be that we're going to be talking about for estar. When you are doing something, ing, the way we say that in Spanish is ando if it's an AR verb, or yendo if it's an ER or an IR verb. And finally, you need to know when to use which one. So when do we use ser and when do we use estar? I'm first going to talk about the three uses of ser, and then we'll move over to the three uses of estar. So the first use of ser is to say who you are. So this table is really handy because if I wanted to say I am Jackie, first I need to know how to say I, which is yo, right? And I know it's either going to be soy or estoy, but I know that if I'm saying who I am, that's a permanent thing. That does not change for most of us. So I would say yo soy Jackie. That's a permanent thing to say who you are. The next use of ser, permanent, is to say what you or someone is like. And you might think, well, that's temporary, that could change, but in general, you know, those characteristics don't tend to change. So for example, if I wanted to say you are kind, I would say tú. This is somebody I'm familiar with, so I would say tú eres amable. You are kind. And again, I know I'm going to come over here because the way we say you, familiar in Spanish, is tú. And I know it's going to be either eres or estás, but I know that when I'm talking about what I'm like or what somebody else is like, I'm going to use ser. So I come over here, match it, tú, and down here, tú eres amable, you are kind. And then the third use of ser is to say what your profession is. And in Spanish, in the Spanish language, that's considered a temporary thing when you talk about your profession. That generally does not change, although it changes for many people, but from a Spanish language perspective, let's pretend it doesn't. So if I wanted to say that she is a teacher, in Spanish we say she is teacher. We leave out the article when we talk about professions. So the way we say she in Spanish is ella es, right? Because that's a permanent thing. We just said when we talk about profession, that's permanent. So ella es maestra. She is teacher. Now we're going to move over to the three uses of estar. The first one is to say how you're doing. So if I wanted to say that we are fine and we're all we're a mix of boys and girls, we're going to want to say we, mix of boys and girls, is nosotros. And to say how you're doing, that's definitely temporary. So we're going to say nosotros estamos. Not somos, because that's permanent, right? Nosotros estamos bien. We are well or fine. The next use is to say what you're doing. So let's suppose I wanted to say that they are swimming and they're girls, right? This is where the ing comes in, or the ando or yendo that we talked about earlier. So the way we say they, all girls, right? Ellas están, na, 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 na. We do the na, 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 so we remember there's an n at the end. Ellas están, they are swimming. Ellas están nadando. And again, we take nadar, which means to swim, right? That's the raw form of the verb. We drop the AR ending and we add ando because it's an AR verb. So, ellas están nadando. They're not going to be doing it forever. It's temporary, so we want to stay on this column and then match the subject pronoun on this side. And then for the last use, to say where you are, that definitely changes. If I wanted to say that you all are here, the way we say you all in Spanish is ustedes, right? Ustedes están aquí. Again, that changes. It's temporary, so we're going to want to stay on this column and match the subject pronoun on this side. Ustedes están aquí. You all are here. So that's the 6 uses of to be. We've gone over this in class. Oh, one more thing I want to mention actually. Sometimes when we're writing a sentence, it doesn't conveniently have nosotros or ella or ustedes. We need to know how to substitute names using these. So for example, if I wanted to say that Maria is a teacher, what's the subject pronoun that could take the place of Maria? Well, it would be she, right? Which in Spanish is ella. So I know I'm going to come to this row on the table when I wanted to say Maria is a teacher. Maria es, because that's the same as saying ella. If you wanted to talk about he is here, the way we substitute for he. I'm sorry, Beto is here. The way we substitute for Beto is he is here, right? Él está aquí, which is temporary. And sometimes there are multiple names. If you wanted to say Beto and I like to use the store example. Beto and I are going to the store. We are going to the store. So I'm going to come to this row right here, right? Beto and I is the same as saying we. Or you and Beto are going to the store. Ustedes. That's the same as saying ustedes or you all. So again, sometimes the sentences don't conveniently have one of these 10 subject pronouns or pronouns. And so we need to know what to use, which one of these to use in place of those names. And again, using the store example always helps. And that's the end of our lesson. If you're still not sure, you can definitely play me again. That's the great thing about doing this online. We'll continue to practice using ser and estar in class. And if you still have questions after watching this, please don't hesitate to ask me. Y gracias por estar aquí conmigo. Adiós.